I'm Rose McDonough, and I am a retired home ec teacher. And when I had kids in 7th grade, this was one of their final projects that we would do, is that they had to make apple crisp in one class period. So they had to be able to peel the apples, but most importantly, they had to read the directions, and they had to read the directions under stress, because I am such that I kind of a teacher that I was at this point. I had the time listed up on the board, and I would be yelling at them. 7 minutes until it needs to be in the microwave. 5 minutes until it needs to be in the microwave. Why? Because if you yourself have ever worked in a restaurant, it's chaos and frightening. And I wanted them to get the idea of what it was like. Now, what they didn't know is that I always gave them about a 7-minute leeway. But I did that anyway, just because that's how I am. It was a favorite recipe. Frequently, it got screwed up because they didn't read the recipe. And that's exactly the point that I wanted them to learn. You must read the recipe. If you look at my recipe is beat up as all get out, because this is the one that I used when I was teaching. And I did stupid stuff just to test them. Like I wrote 1/3 brown sugar. 1/3 what? Well, we had standard measuring cups. So 1/3 had to have been 1/3 cup, because there isn't a 1/3 teaspoon. So it had to have been 1/3 cup. I also told them that they needed 3 teaspoons of sugar. So what's the problem with that? 1, 2, 3. Yes, but 3 teaspoons of sugar equals a tablespoon, and they should have figured that out by then. So that was just a little test that I did to see if they had figured all that part out. All right, so I have about 4 apples in here for the apple crisp I'm going to make today. You can use 4 apples, you can use 5 apples. You can make this triple the recipe, but if you do, you're going to have to microwave it a little longer. When the kids would take my recipe book home, if they in 7th grade, if they went ahead and took a recipe home from the recipe book and made it at home, and somebody told me they did, they got bonus points. So I got this great one. Yeah, can you imagine? I've been retired how many years? And this kid has been out of college, at least 4 years. So that was how many years? Oh yeah, it was 10/23 of 2006. This is October 2020, and I still have this, because when parents send you notes and they are kindly written, you save them. You print them out and you keep them. Dan made his apple crisp recipe this weekend for the family. It was delicious and educational. He had to change the recipe to feed 5. Imagine, math on the weekend for kids. Thanks for making it fun for Dan. Sincerely, Michelle Langer, who is now Michelle Steiger. But thank you. All this time I've saved it. I also made kids do laundry. So I used to get little notes from parents about that one, but I have another one here that I pulled out. It was also the same time. Just a note to let you know that Tyler cooked pancakes today for our family and also his grandparents. The pancakes were so delicious and fluffy. Thank you for teaching Tyler and his life skills. It's very much appreciated. Michelle Ziegler. I'm so happy to have things like that. I really am. So weird. All right, I'm going to rinse these very quickly. So while those are rinsing, I'm going to use a glass bowl, only because I like to microwave in glass, but I also want you to be able to see. So that's why I'm using this. And then I have my other ingredients set up here. My other ingredients that I have is for the topping. So for the topping, I need oats, 3/4 cup of oats. I need a 1/2 cup of flour, and I need also 1/3 cup of brown sugar. If you want yours sweeter, feel free to add more sugar. I believe that that's enough for me. And then I'm just going to take this, and I'm using this really cool tool called a pastry blender. If you do not have a pastry blender, you can use 2 knives to make this work. You may have seen me if you watched my peach topping. This is very similar to what I do on my peach topping. I'm mixing this up just very simply. I use it almost like my rubber scraper, and surely I could be using my rubber scraper, but for right now, I'm just trying to make sure that the brown sugar, the oats, the flour, everything is well dispersed. The thing I want to tell you about the about the oats, is that I use old-fashioned, not quick cooking, because that's a little bit more, well, quick cooking. And they're also finer, and they don't have the same texture when it's cooked together. The other ingredient I need in here, and this is where kids would just struggle, oh my goodness, struggle, because they didn't use the softened butter. They would melt it. It's not supposed to be melted. It's just supposed to be softened. And I've already pre-softened this just by getting it out. It's butter or margarine. If you've followed me along at all, you know that I actually prefer butter over margarine. It's a weird thing. When I was younger, it was always margarine that we used to use at home. As I got older, I learned more, and I prefer to use butter. Yes, butter has a little bit longer, a little bit more expensive and everything else, but in the long run, it digests faster in your system. So I'm going to use the pastry blender, and I'm just going to cut it in, and I'm going to end up having some issues because the butter is going to stick, and I'm just going to keep sliding it back out. All I'm doing is making the crumb topping. So while I'm making this crumb topping, I want to tell you the two other ingredients that I haven't shown you yet. One is the white sugar or granulated sugar, and also cinnamon. This is another way how I would test the kids all the time. And I don't want you to think I was like really mean. When I went through all the tools, I would talk about all the tools and when you would need them. And I would tell them that ahead of time. But in that panic, some people remembered, some people didn't. My favorite is when you had some smart cookie in the kitchen who remembered, wait, she said use that pastry blender, cut in. And they would get it out. And slowly but surely, other kitchens would look over and they would see them using the tool. And it would be like, oh, yeah, that's right. Because if you're trying to do this with a rubber scraper or a wooden spoon, it's just not happening very well. It crumbles up so much faster when you're doing this. And it would crumble up even more fast. I think that was grammatically incorrect. I would be able to do a better job if I stopped talking and just worked. Sorry, it's not my forte. I'm used to just yammering on and on and on. All right, so I have that going on. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Probably fairly good enough. I should probably do it smaller. I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to grab the apples that I have in the drainer over here. I don't want a ton of water in these because I'm not making applesauce. If I had applesauce, I would definitely want more water, but I don't. So I have my apple slices. I'm going to take my cinnamon and my sugar, and I'm going to mix it up like this. Two things. You can use rubber scraper, of course, but I actually prefer to use my hands. This is the one time when I'm working with apples, I generally find that I use my hands instead. And so with the students, how I would know, yeah, I'm throwing them out, I'm going to put them back in. Don't you worry about that, because waste not, want what not. Don't be surprised if I don't even get my rubber scraper and get that little bit of cinnamon that fell over there. What I would do with the kids is to see if they had done this correctly, is I would lift up their bowl and I would look underneath. If their bowl did not look, their apples did not look like they were brown, I knew that they hadn't done it, that they hadn't mixed in the cinnamon and sugar with the apples first. See how thick that is? I just want to make sure I'm getting this mixed up and in with other apples if it's like thick like that. And they are wet, so it's going to dissolve. I just love the smell of cinnamon, don't you? All right, let me see. Do I have this? Looks pretty good. Not worrying about it being perfectly flat because we're going to put the topping on top of it. But I do want to make sure that the bottom, it looks like I've done it enough. So I go under here. Oops, there's about 3 or 4 under there that I missed. Okay, get out that heavy-duty rubber scraper. There we go. You see how I'm using both of my hands to help me out? It's fine. I don't mind touching this stuff. It's that raw meat stuff I can't stand. Ooh, this is not a problem. All right, let's check again and make sure I'm okay. That one definitely have some cinnamon on it. Looks beautiful. Do you want to see? Oh, I don't think you can. Sorry. But just trust me, it looks good. It's well dispersed underneath there. Now I want to take the topping. Just going to pull the butter off of it. And I'm going to put the topping, on top. Where else would it go but on top? There comes the disease again. I can't just let that little bit of butter there. I swear, you'd think I had been born in the Depression, raised in the Depression era. Can't stand to waste anything. And I'm going to take all of this crumb topping and I'm going to mix it over top. Two things that you can do now. If you have a casserole dish that has a lid, you want to go ahead and use the lid. If you don't, you need to cover it with something else because it does need to steam. So what am I going to cover it with? You can cover it with plastic wrap. You can cover it with wax paper. I'm going to actually use a plate. I just find that a plate is almost easier to do anymore. I've started switching to plates in the last year or so. And there it is. It's on top. I'm going to put my plate on. How long am I going to put it in the microwave? The directions say some ridiculous amount, like, let's check it and make sure, 10 to 12 minutes. I know that my microwave is pretty powerful, so I'm going to do mine at 8 minutes. When I first started doing this, microwaves weren't as powerful as they are now. So I'm going to do 8 minutes and then I'm going to check it. I will lift off the top, I'll put my fork in and see if it's tender. If it's not, I'm going to go 2 minutes longer. I always say this, please remember, if your recipe says 10 to 12 minutes, 8 to 12 minutes, start with the lower amount and then make the decision. So that's it. We've put into this oats, brown sugar, a little bit of white sugar went in with the cinnamon into the apples. I also put flour in there, and then I cut in a half of a stick or 4 tablespoons of butter. It's already ready to go. I'm going to put it in the microwave, and I'll see you back here in just a second. Okay, so my microwave has gone off. I've checked it once. Pick the shortest girl in the world and give her a microwave over her stove. Oh my goodness. All right, again, when you take this off or take your plastic wrap off, make sure you take it away from you. It was steaming, so you can see it was steaming. That's the idea. You want it to steam because as it steams, that's how it cooks on top. Obviously, you can bake this in the oven, but microwaving is so much easier. So I put my fork down in. You see how easy the fork went in? It's ready to go. That's all we need. Let it cool a little bit. What's really wonderful is if you take this and do a scoop with a little bit of whipped cream or ice cream on top of it, which I have some vanilla ice cream, French vanilla. That's what we're going to be doing. That's our dessert tonight. All right, so let me give a few, oh, for heaven's sake, my fingers are so dry. I'm trying to pull some names here. I pulled 2 out. Docimo. I'm not really sure if I've said the name correctly, and I feel really bad. She made my ice cream, the easy churn ice cream, no churn ice cream. I'm sorry that I used the KitchenAid with, and hers didn't turn out so well. I did mention on the comments, sometimes it depends on if your bowl is cold or the elevation you're at. I've heard that that can work against you. And when you're making it, you have to wait till the stiff peaks to form. And if you go a minute past that, they all break down again. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry she didn't have success with it. And I've got Mama Bakes. I don't know who Mama Bakes is, but she has a few videos of her own. I appreciate you liking my stuff. So I need you to like, I need you to subscribe, I need you to give some feedback and some comments and tell me what else you want to see me make. Otherwise, I'm just working through the seasons. This is apple season right now, so that's what we have going on here. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you again soon.